Hi, I'm your host, Larry Smith, and you're listening to Speak Out Podcast, a community outreach of the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Moulton, Alabama. Today, my co-hosts are Maddie Treadway, a junior, and Anna Alvarado, a senior at East Lawrence High School. Maddie and Anna are career tech students in Mr. Posey's class, as well as officers in the FFA chapter at East Lawrence, and both aspire to become teachers. Hi, Maddie and Anna. Let's welcome our guests to the show.
Hi, Larry. We are excited to introduce our guest for the podcast, Dr. Jon Bret Smith.
Dr. Jon Bret Smith is the current superintendent of Lawrence County Schools. Prior to his election to superintendent in 2017, he was an administrator at Hatton Elementary, East Lawrence Middle, and Mount Hope, and taught middle school math at East Lawrence Middle School. Dr. Smith is a product of the Lawrence County School System, graduating from Lawrence County High School in 2000. His two children are students at Hatton Elementary and Hatton High School and are driving force in his passion for education in our county. In his spare time, Dr. Smith enjoys spending time with his wife and children, working on his farm and hunting.
Welcome to Speak Out, Dr. Smith.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity.
Tell us a little bit more about your Grow Your Own Teacher initiative.
In Lawrence County, we want to make sure that we have the very best students, have the very best teachers in our classrooms for our students. And so a couple years back, we decided that we want to make sure that whether it's high school students or those that are in college, we want to identify those that have a passion for teaching, and we want to make sure that we lock them into coming back to Lawrence County. And so that's what our Grow Your Own initiative is all about. It's providing them with part-time jobs to make sure that they know what teaching's going to be like, and we want to make sure that they come back to our school system.
Great.
For having children enrolled in our school system, what would you want to see change in the school system?
I think that any time that we want to make sure that each and every day that we're trying to get better. I don't think that I've ever been one of those that's been complacent, and I think that all good teachers are driven to improve their instruction each and every day. And so I think that's what we want. There's never a point that we're trying to get to. I think we're just trying to improve every day and make sure that our students grow. It's not about achievement for me, it's about growth.
So, when you were younger, did you ever have a positive influence that pushed you to want to become an educator?
Absolutely. I would say that particularly, I often get the question, who's your favorite teacher? Who's been your favorite teacher of the years? I don't know that I can simply name one person. I've had a multitude of great teachers. From primary, kindergarten, first, second grade, to middle school, I had some wonderful teachers that really influenced me, to my high school teachers and beyond. So I don't know that I can. And to be very frank with you, I've had a few that were not so good. And so when I developed what I wanted to do in my classroom, I modeled it after those that I thought were great teachers. And I figured out a few things I didn't want to do, that I didn't want to be that certain teacher or whatever else. And so, yes, by all means, I have a great many people that I can look at.
Well, along that line, people say that you really don't learn to teach until you get your own classroom. What things do you have to learn on the job?
I think that there's only so much that you can learn out of a textbook that you can only learn in a college classroom. And I think that's really what our Grow Your Own initiative is really about. It's about getting in there and allowing these students who want to become teachers the opportunity to tutor, to work with children, to see the things that work for them that don't. You have to figure out your own classroom management style. You have to figure out what works for you. I tried when I very first started, I modeled my first math classroom after my favorite math teacher. And that didn't work for me. It worked for a year or two. But I figured out that didn't work for me. I wasn't that person. It worked for him. It didn't work for me. And so I had to change. And so I think that that's what it's really all about is, again, whether it's being a teacher, administrator, or whatever else, you really don't know until you're in the classroom and you're really the one responsible for students.
Cool.
Well, what inspired you to become the superintendent?
Well, I've always wanted to be, when I was a teacher, I enjoyed being a teacher. And I think I was a good classroom teacher, and my practice evolved over time. I became a better classroom teacher, and then I figured out some things that I thought that I would like for the whole school to know. And so as an administrator, I tried to share those things about data-based decisions, about doing what's right for children, about creating a culture and climate. And then as an administrator, I felt like we did really well at the school level. I thought, well, I can do these same things at the district level. And so I was hoping to share those as well, and so that's what my passion is each and every day. I have a few commitments, those things that I will not compromise, and those are the things that we work on.
Over your years, what has been the most rewarding part of being an educator?
Of all, and this is going to sound really bizarre, of all the things that I've had the privilege to do as an educator, for example, as a superintendent, I think that in the last 5.5 years we have accomplished some amazing things. It's not me, it's us as a district. We have the greatest financial reserves that we ever had. We're expanding the Career Tech Center. We've done some amazing things with technology. We set it up, we've created a virtual and blended school. We have an academic plan. We have all these things that are going on. But if you ask me what my greatest academic accomplishment was, it was when I was a teacher. And I can tell you particularly, there was one year when I had 13 students who had severe learning needs. And we worked really hard with those students, and we got them to what we call benchmark. We got them to a certain place with academic achievement. I've had the privilege of walking across the stage at the University of Alabama to get my doctorate. I've taught classes at Alabama. Of all the things that I've done in education, that is my pinnacle moment, in that when you can take kids and carry them to a place in learning, that's my greatest moment.
Well, how has the pandemic affected the way that Lawrence County Schools operates?
The pandemic has affected everything. I'm against COVID. It has been an interesting time. I think that there's some things that will never change back, and then there's some things I wish that we would go back to today. I think there will always be safety and health concerns. For example, I don't know that I will ever look at a water fountain the way that I did before. I think there's some things that we will always look at. School visitors are another way. When during the wintertime, when we have a basketball game and people were shoulder to shoulder packed in there, we didn't think a whole lot about it, but now we do. Same thing with flu. I don't know that we'll ever look at flu like we did before. It was kind of reactive. Now do we need to be proactive? Things about cleaning and stuff like that. But I do think there have been some positive changes to do with the pandemic. I know that there's been a great deal of federal monies, so it's allowed us to have technology. It's allowed us to set up the virtual and blended school, which really caters to those that may not succeed in the traditional school environment. I also think about meetings. I think about Zoom meetings. Before we needed a meeting, we had to call everybody to the board. Took up time out of the day. Now if we have a meeting and I can get on, say, 9 o'clock, we're going to have a meeting, 15 minutes, we're done. Nobody has to travel to the board. And so I think that, yes, there's been some things that I wish would have never came about due to the pandemic, but there's also been some things that we're probably better for.
Yeah, the pandemic kind of pushed us into some of this stuff. It reminds me of a long time ago when computers first came out, and teachers were kind of scared to use computers in the classroom in teaching. But eventually, once they jumped in there and they started doing it, then they loved it, and it was a big help in teaching, and they did great at it. And the pandemic kind of did the same thing.
Absolutely.
Anna.
What makes this job interesting to you, just being a superintendent?
Well, it is never the same. It is never the same. It is a frustrating job at times. I think any time that you're trying to continuously move forward, that there's setbacks and things like that. It is never the same. And I think that you continually have to change what you're doing to try to improve. And so I really enjoy interacting with students. That's probably the one thing that I don't like about being at the central office, is that I don't get to walk down the hall and see students like I did when I was in the school buildings. And that's one of the things, as a coincidence, in the last 2 or 3 days that I vowed to do again, is to finish out the year strong being in schools, and then next year to have dedicated time to where I'm in the schools. It's about children. It's about doing what's best for kids, and I have to set the example.
So along the lines of doing what's best for the students, how do you go about making challenging decisions that could affect students?
The one thing that I always try to keep in mind is to do what's best for children. When I made decisions as a principal, and even back when I was a classroom teacher, I want to do what's best for kids. And I often think about, if this was my child, what would I want? What would I want here? And sometimes that decision is not the easiest decision. So I think that if there's a focal point, something that I aim at, my goal, I'm going to do what's best for kids. And whatever happens, happens. But we're going to try to continuously improve. I've never been one of those that's been satisfied with where I am, that good's good enough. I'm going to try to get better each and every day.
Well, do we have teacher mentors in our school system?
We do. That's one of the things that when we started, and I think that if you look at research is very plain about teacher recruitment and retention. I think we do a really good job of getting high quality people into our schools. Our problem is, and it's the problem not just in Lawrence County, not just in the state of Alabama, it's the problem, at least in the United States, if not the world over, is once you get teachers in there, what are you doing? What are you doing to retain them? And I think that's one of the things is that we assign everybody a mentor, and everybody has a formal mentor, but they also have an informal mentor. We also, from the central office, we try to check, go around multiple times per semester and say, hey, is there something that you need? All those things. And I think that's something that we have to do in order to keep teachers. And I don't know the exact percentage, but there's a big statistic out there that says a significant number of teachers leave by the end of the third year.
Really?
And that's changing now with all the job openings and things like that. But we want to make sure that not only we get them in the door, but we keep them, and we want to take care of our people.
What is the role of the superintendent and board of education and curriculum development?
Well, with the Board of Education, their role, I guess, with curriculum development is a little bit more of a minor role as is compared to like a business role or personnel role. We try to inform them of what's going on, but they don't necessarily pick what textbook we're going to use in sixth grade math. We try to keep them informed, and obviously they approve the monies for such. But with the superintendent and what I call my designees, that's one of our big roles, is making sure that we teach, that we have the materials to teach. And one of the biggest things that I believe in, I think what made me a successful classroom teacher, is whatever we have to do is based off the standards. The state of Alabama, and I know, I think both of you want to be teachers, the state of Alabama gives you something called the course of study. So if it's, again, use the example of sixth grade math, they tell you exactly what you have to teach in sixth grade math. And so we want to make sure that the materials that we buy are matched up to those standards. And we also want to make sure that the teachers are teaching those standards, because those things are what you're tested on with the ACAP or whatever else it is, the ACT later on. So we want to make sure that. So again, to answer your question, the board doesn't have as direct role in curriculum development as it does some other things, but they're still very knowledgeable and they still play a vital part of it.
What would you say are currently some of the biggest challenges faced in the education system as a whole?
I think it is one of the biggest things that I have over and over again is exactly, are we coming out of the pandemic? What does that mean for us? How do we go back to a pre-pandemic school system? Are there things that we need to keep? Are there things that we need to change? I think we're right now in a volatile political environment with some things, and I think that directly and indirectly affects our school system. And I think that with all that's going on, there's just a time of unrest in our country, and school for many people is a certain place of things will go on, and we have to be mindful of, no matter what happens on the world outside of us, we're going to treat kids right, and we're going to do what's best for children.
For someone who went to college to be a teacher, or even a teacher looking for a new school, what would you say your requirements would be?
We want people that are good to kids. We want people that teach, and we want them that are good to children. And if you can make those, we can make the rest of it work. You don't have to be from here. You don't have to be from Lawrence County. Some of the best teachers that I know didn't grow up in Lawrence County, and that's perfectly fine. We want to make sure that whoever we put in the classroom is committed to kids. I can tell you story after story of teachers doing things that they don't have to do, and we want those that go above and beyond to help our children, because it is about the future.
How much money do teachers make, and how does that affect your daily life?
Well, teachers are about to get a 4% raise, and I would say that right now, and I would have to look up the exact starting number, but I would say it was in 41, 42, maybe 44 now after the raise. And one of the things that you look at now is that if you've been here for several years, there's fixing to be some significant raises. And I can kind of explain that to anybody who's interested. But one of the things that you do if you get a master's degree, I think it's about $5,000 more. If you get what they call an education specialist degree, which is above a master's, I think again it's about another $5,000. Most people that stick around at least get a master's degree, and to do those. So is it one of those things where anybody's getting rich? I don't know that. If you go into education to get rich, you probably went into the wrong field. But I would say that it is a comfortable living. I think that it comes with good benefits, which is not always the case in certain occupations. And I think ultimately you have to look at what am I really accomplishing here.
So Lawrence County offers teachers a chance to advance in education and position.
Right. And that's one of the things that we have really tried to emphasize lately. Not only when you get advanced degrees, you get more compensation, we try to provide teachers with opportunities to learn professional development. Orton Gillingham is what we do for reading strategies and dyslexic students. We have committed several $100,000 the last few years to Orton Gillingham. We want to make sure that our people are professionally developed. We have an outside group coming in this year that is helping with our administrative duties. So if you're interested in going into administration, we have a year-long classes that talk about social media and curriculum and legal issues and discipline and all those things. So if that's something you want to do, you can go in and participate in those classes. And so we want to make sure, and again, we try to give people jobs and activities and stuff like that where their talents can shine. And so if there's something that they want to go on, we hope that they have those opportunities, and we do our best to make sure they do.
Are there ways a school district can increase state funding for special education, vocational education, or general programs?
Increase state funding, probably not. The only way that I can think of is through grants. I know that the one that jumps out to me is for special education is what they call high needs. So if we have a student or a group of students that has some extra needs, we can apply for grants. Same thing with career tech. There are career tech grants out there, things like that. But from the state, it's pretty well allotted what you're going to get.
So I've wanted to be a teacher my whole life, and I've always been told that teaching is like a calling. So do you feel that you were called to be a teacher or an educator?
I do. I come from a family of educators. My grandmother was a teacher. My mother was a teacher. And when I started college, I didn't really see this path. About midway through, I did. And then decided to be a math teacher, and I would have never dreamed how many years this is, 17, 18 years ago, that I would be sitting here. I've always been happy doing I've always been happy as a teacher. I think I was a successful teacher. When I became an assistant principal, I enjoyed that job. When I was a principal, I enjoyed that job most days. And then as a superintendent, here I am. Again, most days I enjoy the job. So I think that all those things, but yes, it is a definite calling. And I think that's one of the reasons that some people decide to get out, that they feel called to do other things, and I think that's fine. Just as long as you're committed to kids, it will work out.
Well, Dr. Smith, what advice would you give to aspiring teachers?
I would say that as much as you can get in the classroom to help you make your decisions about what particular area that you wanted to go into, I would think that would be really big. I think that any type of interaction with kids, whether it's at helping with summer camps, vacation Bible schools, working for the school system, being a student aide in a high school, to working in college, I think that helps you prepare yourself. I would say that doing a good job, having a good name would also help as well, and just to try to do your best. One of the biggest things that I would say, and it's not necessarily a recruitment tool or whatever else, but once somebody starts, and I think that any good educator would tell you this, there's a period of time where it's a whirlwind. You're just trying to do the best you can. Most time it's your first year, or at least your first semester. Just try to, find the things that you're committed to. Hey, I'm going to do what's best for children. I'm going to work hard every day. I'm going to over prepare. I'm going to do all these things and just do the very best you can. You'll get better with time. And I've often said that I wish I could go back and work again with those first year students I had, because I wasn't the teacher my first year that I was my fifth or sixth year.
Well, Dr. Smith, thank you for being with us today on Speak Out. Our time's up. And Maddie and Anna, thanks for being co-hosts today.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Speak Out Podcast, the community outreach of the Lawrence County Career Technical Center in Moulton, Alabama. I'm your host, Larry Smith, and I would like to thank my co-hosts, Maddie Treadway and Anna Alvarado, and our guest, Dr. Jon Bret Smith. Please check out our podcast on the Lawrence County Career Technical School website, and we hope that you'll join us for future episodes.